Years ago, I was given a set of CDs by Kevin Trudeau, and these CDs are called "Your Wish is Your Command." So it's about manifestation. I think there are 11 CDs or something like that. They're really impressive. I recommend them to anybody to, it's a curious piece of content. So part of these CDs actually talk about the physical aspect of manifestation, how you should prep your body if you want to. It's like changing the oils in your machinery, and blowing the pipes, so that you can function properly and manifest, create what you want. Of course, you have more energy, you can think clearer. And so what he says is also clean food. Always take biofood, food preferably produced in people's gardens. So I remember this very well. He said this is, apart from cleaning food, you also need to go through periods of cleaning your own pipes, from all sides, and also periods where you don't consume things, like fast days.
It's interesting that you're bringing up and I agree with what you're saying. And it is part of a process that I went through when I was really trying to heal. I got real serious with it. But interesting you bring up the fasting thing too, because I think I might have discovered, because fasting's amazing, but I think I've discovered a way to actually make it enhance and make it even more amazing. And I've put that into practice. I actually did that with someone that I know who's like, hey, I want to try it. And they fasted before and they're like, dude, your technique is unbelievable. They said it actually enhanced my fast a great deal. And I found some science to support it, but I had already had the theory, which is why I looked to see what I could find. But ultimately is what I call the hydrogen fast. And so whenever you fast, what I've discovered is, one, the body, you want it loaded up on nutrients. And the reason you want the body loaded up on nutrients is because when you fast, you actually deplete yourself of all these nutrients. And this is another interesting thing, because if you look at fasting in a short term, like let's say 7 days or even 14 days, but when you look at it on a short term, there's clearly a lot of benefits. I mean, these are measured scientifically. We know that it's amazing for you. But the long term, I mean, you don't want to go without eating for a year. You'll probably be dead, Even if you wanted to go without eating for 6 months, it probably would not be a good idea. So everything's always relative, and you have to understand the amount of time. And this goes for both diets or fasting or, whatnot. That's why I always tell people, and a lot of people just don't get it, is how important it is for it to be extremely pure. And I want people to understand that there is a difference, because this just keeps coming up. There's a huge difference between Brown's gas and molecular hydrogen, because some people think it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. I have found massive differences. So for people who think that it's the same thing, it's not. And it's important because a lot of the Brown's gas devices use chemicals, which is like defeats the whole purpose. They use chemicals like lye or sodium hydroxide. And the whole point is purity, because you're going to be using hydrogen for the long term. I mean, I've been using hydrogen for years. And the purity, not just for your health, but even for the spiritual aspect, seems to have, an effect. So it seems to be extremely important. And of course, this is how nature does it. Nature, the natural waters that have hydrogen, they don't have Brown's gas in them. They have pure molecular hydrogen. So anyway, the hydrogen fast, which would consist of, when you have all the nutrients, which is why I make the smoothies. The point of the smoothies is to bring up all the nutrients. And there's actually clear data that nutrients do load up in our body, not just nutrients, by the way, but even hydrogen. So I have scans where they literally, hydrogen loads up in your system, like in your liver and your kidneys. And so that way, when something happens, one of the reasons.
How can you see this in a scan?
I actually don't know the equipment they're using. I just know they were doing it in Japan, and I was able to see the images, and they actually are able somehow, I don't know how they do it, but they're able to measure hydrogen loaded up in the system. And so when you do a fast, if you do the hydrogen fast, which you would do, what I would personally do, because there's no medical advice, and I would be very cautious. You better know what you're doing when it comes to fasting. It can be potentially dangerous depending on how long you go. If you probably go for 7 days or less, you'll probably be fine. It's once you get to those really long fasts where things can potentially get dangerous. But super clean water with really clean hydrogen. And obviously during fasting, all you get is water. And you can do a lot of inhalation. of the hydrogen gas. And then, of course, if you want to move to something called, have you ever heard of dry fasting?
Yes. Up to 4
So,
days. I've heard Shaman Joe, who was on my channel, he does dry fasting as a part of a Sundance ceremony.
there you go, because that's my other theory. So when you move from the normal fast, using a lot of the hydrogen water and clean water and the gas, when you move to the dry fast, then you can just inhale hydrogen gas. So you can actually do a dry fast with hydrogen and really enhance the effects. And there's not a ton of science yet, but the data, I could go into why I believe that it works. But the truth is, it's probably better that I don't, because most of the time well, for one, it would probably be boring for people. But a lot of times, if I were to disclose that, what's going to probably end up happening is, as you know, a lot of my stuff just ends up getting stolen and other people take credit for it. And so I know why certain things happen. And this is, I believe it's crazy as it sounds, the hydrogen communicating, like somehow it's connecting dots for me. And I understand how it works when scientists don't understand. They're like, we don't know, we can see that it does this, but we don't know why. And I actually think I literally know why. But that'd be a whole other conversation. The point is it works, in my opinion. So I think it would be amazing for anybody who really wants to step up their spiritual path. Hydrogen's absolutely incredible, but clean water would be a really important part too, in my opinion.
My theory on hydrogen is that it can, by not only on hydrogen, but pure water combined with hydrogen, is that you actually open up for all these abilities that you anyhow have latent. You're activating them. So that's why you have access to all the information that is out there. It's what I actually train people when we go in alpha. It's a similar thing, but you're doing this all the time, right? So you're constantly connected to this information that you could receive information at will. And
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Absolutely.
Okay. And so what other spiritual aspects have you seen, have you observed in your life?
The biggest one that I've been noticing, it's almost like this has been going on. Like I said, like I get the craziest ideas and then I'll implement them and they work and they're simple. Like even the smoothies I make. I know that people make smoothies. I've never seen anybody make one like mine. The people who watch my videos are like, I've never seen anybody do that. The doctors tell me it's impossible for you to be able to, for example, not be deficient. Yet when they check my blood, they're like, one doctor saw my blood and actually was like, you know what? They wanted to do a study on me. They're like, we've never seen, this is nuts. We want to know what the heck's going on. And we're wondering if you'd volunteer for this. And I ended up saying no, because I would have had to change certain things in regards to my protocols, getting off and on protocols, seeing all the changes. And I just didn't want to do that. But it was a nice offer. But on the spiritual front, this is where things get kind of strange. Is I'm feeling more connected as part of it, but like highly intuitive. I mean, more than I've ever been. It's almost things are coming like actually easier to me. There's just things that I know. That's why when I look around, I kind of feel like, humanity's nuts. But I think a lot of people probably feel that way. But there's this level of intuition where sometimes almost like dare I say, almost like know the future or know what's coming. And it's been getting more and more profound. And I can feel it more and I can really explain it. Like I can't it's not like it's in my head. It's like it's coming from somewhere else. And I've been tracking it for years. And what I mean tracking it is if I get this kind of intuition about something, I'll observe it and be like, okay, let's see if I'm right. So, a week goes by or 2 weeks go by or whatever it is. And I'll be like, oh, look, it turns out I was right. Okay, maybe that's a coincidence. And then it happens again. And then I'll do the same thing again. And I've been doing this for years now. And I'm right like well over 90% of the time, which is pretty high.
Tell us what's coming.
Well, that's the crazy thing. The big talk is actually AI, right? I have actually known there's a lot of things that I've known for a long time that I've been watching literally come true. And I watched the world waking up. I watched the things that are happening. But to be honest, I saw all this a long time ago. And of course, I never talk about it. I don't really, there's almost nobody that I tell. I think there's like two, maybe three people that are close to me that maybe we've talked about these things. But for the most part, I don't say anything publicly like this. I have a pretty strong intuition. Like I know I know it's coming. I know what it's going to look like. I know what it's going to do, but it doesn't really necessarily matter until it actually happens. But one thing's for sure, there seems or appears to be a real war for this body. And when I say for this body, I mean your body, my body, everybody's bodies, right? Because one, why is there so much toxic crap in our water? Why does our food clearly have ingredients that we know, by the way, are extremely harmful for us? Why do we have people who it's kind of hilarious and it's funny, I laugh about it, right? But it's a very serious matter. We got people who are farming to grow food, and those people are getting sick because of all the pesticides that are being sprayed. It's literally affecting the people who are farming and growing the food for us. And yet we're supposed to eat that
with the level of destruction of crops and animal farms, there won't be, they won't have to work the land anymore. So there's no danger. I mean, joke aside, but yeah, thing is also happening.
And there's obviously tons of pollution in the air and all these pollutants. Here's one of my personal theories. Again, I don't talk about this one a lot, but I actually do think it's this form of spiritual warfare, because what happens is as you pollute the environment, you're actually polluting the body. This body lives within this environment. Think of a fish bowl. If you got a little fish in there and that water's all polluted, that fish is going to be polluted. That's why they did a study in UCLA. This is one of the reasons I don't really eat seafood. Very seldom will I have a fish, once in a while, but not a lot, because it is so contaminated. The level of mercury, the level of these heavy metals in seafood is astronomical, Serena. It's not, they got some or maybe high levels. It is astronomical, like way beyond the heavy metals found in even, I'm not going to say the word because I know YouTube is weird, but it starts with a V. They're like these little needles that go inside of you, or whatever. And, anyway, like the flu
now
vaccine.
That you
We can
mentioned
say
this, both in combination with the fish, Bob Kennedy said that he years ago, before he started the whole V campaign, he was testing the water in small creeks in the US and fishes somehow, whatever, in a lab. And he discovered that the level of mercury in the fish and in the waters, in the rivers, is huge. It's like unacceptable that this is even allowed to be eaten.
That's right. And that's why I stay away from it. But that's also the reason I use hydrogen and really clean water, because hydrogen helps protect you. And there's clear data about this. My videos are numbered. You can watch video number 8. Protecting you from radiation, protecting you from certain contaminants. Like there's even, this is one of the most, I give an extreme example so that you can understand minor things that are not as extreme. But probably one of my more favorite ones is literally a drug called cisplatin. You remember this one?
No.
It's an anti-tumor drug. It's a cancer drug.
Okay.
Doctors almost never use this drug. The reason that they don't use this drug is because it literally destroys your kidneys. Oh. You get on this drug for some cancer, you're going to also need a kidney transplant. Can you imagine? It would be terrible. Yeah. Well, they did a study where they used hydrogen while given cisplatin. And I believe this was on animals, because they always start with animals. And it literally protected the kidneys so much that they got minor damage, which is very different than, huge damage, to the point where you could totally keep your kidneys and they would function. That is how protective hydrogen is. And that's part of the reason that I named my channel, not just Uprising, but what Uprising 144K, the 144,000. Because I think that if you're going to get through this, what we're going through, your body's going to need to be at the top of its game. You know what I mean? And so I really do think there's kind of a war for our minds, our bodies. I mean, they assign us numbers, like social security numbers. We have to pay massive amounts of taxes, almost like we're free range slaves. Like they were saying free range chickens, but we're free range slaves, giving so much of our work, of our life. And for what? To build weapons and do the craziest things. I mean, I don't think any of us want our money really to go towards that, towards hurting things. And yet we don't even have the best food. I mean, I would love for them to develop technologies to grow the most amazing food so we can all be extremely healthy, right? Make everything on the shelf healthy for us instead of processed foods that clearly hurt us and destroy our minds. And the more disconnected we are, I think the more that they can influence us. See, for me, to be really quite honest with you, it's very, very hard for me to get influenced by the nonsense that we see on TV or in the media or whatever. Like, I just look at it and laugh. Like, I literally, I'm like, I can't believe people believe this. And then, you know what? I run into people who believe it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and I don't say anything. I keep quiet. I don't say a lot because these people will never understand what I do. They're not in my body. They don't have my blood. I don't think they're extremely clear-minded. They're clearly not using hydrogen like I do. And I understand that. When you have that level of clarity, I know the way they see the world. And so I also know there's no point in talking to them. There's no point in having a conversation. There's going to be very few people that I can really, really open up and have a conversation with. And I just choose not to. And it's okay. I'm not like, it doesn't, eat me up inside. I just have to watch the world go through what it's going to go through, which is part of its development, part of its growing pains. There's a really wonderful verse in scripture. It was actually Jesus was saying some things that were going to be happening in the future, and his followers were freaking out. They were like basically freaking out because he's telling them what's going to happen. And Jesus basically said, this is modern English, right? Because Jesus said, guys, don't freak out, calm down. And he said, for these things must come to pass before the marking of my return. So it kind of lets you know that all this is a process. These things have to happen. Just like me, I was extremely sick, extremely lost, extremely confused. And I had to go through that process before I decided to make a change. And maybe humanity is potentially going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm. I am thinking now about different religions, different tribes. Let's say the Native Americans. When you mentioned where the world is going to, I was speaking recently to shaman Joe Foxdreamer, who is in Canada, and he said, do you know that in Canada, Native Americans are not allowed to own land and even businesses? Only under certain conditions, but naturally they're not. So this is clearly where the rest of the world is also being taken slowly but surely, pushed in this direction. But I'm also thinking about his practices and his perception of the world. So the way to keep safe is not necessarily, he wants to keep the body pure and to a certain extent because he eats meat, right? So for their religion, I would call it, this is not so important. But on the other hand, they have the connection to the land and they receive information for their safety in different ways. So their spirituality comes from the connection to earth and from different aspects of life, right? Yours comes from the ascension of hydrogen, and this is how you connect. So do you think there's only one way, or how do you see things?
Yeah, let me put it this way, because this is a good point. If the food, the pollutants in food, the pollutants in water, the pollutants in the air, if the body wasn't important, if they're like, the pollution, it doesn't matter what I eat. I'll have cheeseburgers or steak every day or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. If it didn't matter, Zarina, they would not go through all the effort of polluting all our food and polluting our air and polluting our water. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't have gone to those extremes. And even in scriptures, I believe there's a scriptural verse that says something like the world will become a toxic wasteland. And it kind of is. It's so toxic out there. I don't think that if it was of no importance, whoever has the power, because clearly somebody has the strings and they're pulling on them clearly, They have so much power. I don't think they would go through all the trouble that they go through to create GMO seeds and spray the crap out of our foods. I mean, think about it. I mean, we didn't even have chemicals, a few hundred years ago when we were growing food. Now all of a sudden we can't grow food without them. And all this technology that we have, all this technology and rockets to outer space or whatever, and we somehow can't grow food without chemicals. I mean, doesn't that seem a little weird to you?
Mm.
We can develop these seeds. This is a funny one. We develop these GMO seeds. So when they grow the plant, they're literally designed so that we can spray the crap out of them with chemicals and the plant won't die. That's what they're designed for. Why not design a plant that doesn't even need the chemicals? But yet they design it.
Yeah, even worse, they're designed not to have offspring. So the plant wouldn't give seeds.
There you go. So more control.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I think if it wasn't important, then they wouldn't even be going through these processes. So I don't know if that answers your question, because no matter what people believe, mm-hmm. I mean, look, I'm not saying that you can never eat meat. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Now, the body seems to take about 72 hours to deal with, a little steak. So when I mean a little steak, like you probably don't want to have eggs and bacon for breakfast, sausage McMuffin for lunch, and a steak for dinner. It's just too much, right? And milk with all of it or whatever. I've seen that if you're going to have any, first you do want the cleanest stuff, right? Because the stuff, the food that is being grown, or even the animals, they're feeding them more grain instead of grass, right? They put a lot of these, whether it's antiparasitics or antibiotics, which are kind of necessary for keeping infection down, keeping the parasite numbers down. But here's the problem. We've been doing this for decades, and this is real data, by the way. I'm not making this up. This is already a scientific fact. These animals are developing super bugs, so super bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics, super parasites that are resistant to antiparasitics. And when we eat those foods, like the meat, for example, the research shows that within 2 hours, that's all it takes. Within 2 hours, those things are inside of you. And now you are more resistant to antibiotics, to antiparasitics. So if you end up in an emergency situation where you need some drugs to save your life, there's a strong possibility that they will not work as good as they should, and this is why I always limit my consumption. Like, I don't eat the foods that have those things in them, first of all, mm-hmm. but I also do my absolute best to never take those medicines. And I did have one incident in the last 10 or 12 years where it was kind of a weird thing, but I accidentally inhaled. I was eating something and I inhaled like I was talking, and I got a piece of sauerkraut in my lungs.
Oh.
And it got infected. And the infection went all over my body, including to my brain. It was horrendous. I was infected everywhere. And I definitely would have died had it not been for antibiotics. It saved my life. Mm-hmm. But my body responded so good to the antibiotics because, one, I cleaned my water super well. There's no antibiotics. There's nothing in my water it's clean.
Yeah.
And the way that I eat is so clean that my body responded so good. And if you hadn't responded that good, somebody would probably be dead, Mm-hmm. So once in a while, it's absolutely necessary. It's just like, you just don't want to overdo it, And so your friend, him, and look, I'm always okay with agreeing to disagree, but I definitely believe very strongly in the connection between the body and the earth, just like the ancient scriptures say. The ancient scriptures say that our body was risen of the earth. So God created the heavens and the earth, and then he rose us from the earth and blew life into us, which is what the scriptures say, right? So our bodies, and I've experienced it, by the way, so this is not just me reading books. The connection between the body and the earth is crucially important. And I agree with the Native Americans in regards to this. But we also have a part of us that's our spirit that is more connected to something else, right? And that combination, but when you dirty up the body, mm-hmm. when you muck it up with just God knows what, I mean, we can see it even on scans, like the brain, right? Mm-hmm. When you screw all this up, you don't have that connection, the way that you potentially could. And this is why children are so kind of amazing, because I'm sure the ancient scriptural verses about children. You must be like a child to enter the kingdom of God, or Jesus was very protective of children. And I feel the same way. I think children should be treasured. I mean, This is going back to the way that a lot of the Japanese treat their children, like the schooling, the food that they give the kids in school in Japan, the way that they treat them. And by the way, they test kids in school for parasites. I mean, we don't, I mean, I've never in America, when I went to school in America, never once got tested for parasites. Never once. You know, they've never cared about giving me anti-parasitics.
I was tested living in Bulgaria in kindergarten. You're still tested, by the way, as a child.
There you go. See, and yet in America, one of the most powerful, richest countries in the world, and they don't even care. And then what kind of food do they feed the kids? I remember the kind of food they would give us in school. It was horrendous, absolute trash. The food was horrible, you know? I mean, just greasy pizzas with a bunch of pepperoni, you know, and the greasy cheese and whatever, and tons of bread to muck you up and whatever, you know. And it doesn't clear the mind. Right. It mucks up your blood. And you know, and there's another ancient verse that says life is in the blood. And that part of my protocols is keeping the blood extremely clean, extremely hydrated, and full of nutrients so it can be carried throughout the body and feed the tissues, feed your brain, feed the body so that the body can function right. If it's not functioning right, well, then you see people like Alzheimer's and dementia and things are not functioning properly. It's clearly important for the body to be optimal, even for our own spiritual experiences. And I think the Buddhists and even the Japanese understand that very well. You know, Buddhist monks have extremely clean diets. They absolutely treasure and love water. By the way, they actually want to keep the water extremely clean. They're really into keeping the waters clean. And this is all part of it. And I mean, it's not just something that I would read. I've literally been living it and experiencing it. And it's been shocking me, but I try to stay away from it because I know how much of an argument it becomes. And I just want people to get better and feel better. So I just say, hey, this is how you clean your water. This is how you make the best hydrogen. This is how I eat. You know, I keep it simple.
Where would you want to take your knowledge from now? Not only knowledge, but the way you share things with people. How do you want to develop your communication with people, your channel? What do you want to let them know in the future? Maybe?
Yeah, well, you know, what I'm thinking about doing is, for me, this has been so wonderful. Since the hydrogen, I have been able to finally reach a place that I've been wanting to for a long time, which I could always feel inside that I wanted to go a certain direction in life. I just didn't know which direction, but I could feel it inside, you know, like inspiration. I just didn't know where to put that inspiration. Serena, I know exactly what I got to do now. And that is a really wonderful feeling for me because I used to feel so empty, not knowing what direction I wanted to go. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly where I got to go and how to do it. And so that is all planned. And this is my journey, because the reason I can't share it a lot is because I'm going to be so focused on my work and this body and myself and my mind, my spirit, my heart, everything. That's where all my attention is going to go. What I'm thinking about doing, mostly because of a lot of viewers that are very, very interested in this, is I'm going to open up a new channel. So anybody who's subscribed to my channel, obviously stay tuned, because when the timing is right, I'm going to release a video that says, I got a new channel. When people go subscribe to the new channel, it's going to be very different than my existing channel. My existing channel is just about health, education, how to clean water, how to make the proper amount of hydrogen or the proper way of making hydrogen. Because there are terrible ways, in my personal opinion, out there. You know, we talked about chemicals and cheap products from China. I'm sure you really think China's trying to make the best hydrogen machine to give to people in America? No way. I mean, you know, and they use cheap metals and leaching metals, whatever, all this stuff, right? That could potentially be happening from their equipment. And so I show people how to do all this health stuff on the current channel. But once I go to the other channel, it's going to be a little bit of following what I'm doing, so people can just kind of observe and see what I do, how I do it, and why I do it. And then I might share insights. You know, if I meditate, if I do certain things and I happen to learn something, I might share it with people in the hopes that it can potentially help others, or just sharing my journey. And I'm going to show where I'm going, because I've learned that there's somewhere where I have to go. And all I'm going to say is that I'm following the water. That's the whole purpose for me going where I'm going, has everything to do with the water and nothing else. And so I'm going to be following the water, specific waters, by the way. And I'm going to share more information on that, because a lot of the information that I already know, I've never said it publicly, and I really haven't told just about nobody, because it's something that the world actually doesn't even know. Some of it has been one of the biggest discoveries that eventually I'll probably share with the audience, is something that the world has deemed impossible, and yet I already discovered a way that it is possible. In fact, I already it's already a certain thing. I don't say 100% about a lot of things, but I'll say 99.9% for right now. But I won't share it right now because I can't do it right now. I'll have to share it after the fact, because once I share it, it could change a lot of things. And I'm even concerned that when I share the information, it could ruin some things. So that's why I'm kind of don't want to say anything just yet.
Yeah, you never share information before the fact, because you're ruining the manifestation.
Yeah, but not just that. Like, I'll give you an example. Here's one example. I had a friend who loved picking mushrooms, and he goes out into the forest, and he's like, dude, I discovered this really amazing place. So we go, and it's like full of mushrooms, so beautiful, edible mushrooms. And we would get huge bags of them and make wonderful meals and all these different stuff. Well, once he talked about it and told people, by the time he went there last time, people were trashing it. They would come in, take all the mushrooms and leave trash on top of it, like people smoking cigarettes and eating food and leaving their wrappers and just totally disrespecting the place. It ruined this beautiful area that he had discovered. And there's discoveries like that I've made about things that, again, are supposed to be impossible. And it's almost like saying, well, it's impossible for a mushroom to be the size of a tree. I'm using an example, right? Because I can't say what it is that I found. But yet there is a place that I have found that has the impossible, and it's nature at its finest, Zarina, and it will blow all these things out of the water as far as what people believed are even possible, let alone true. And they're there. And I'm going to go and do this. And then eventually I'm going to have to decide whether it is I want to share with people, or even if I share it, maybe I won't share the exact location. I don't know yet. I don't know how that's going to happen.
When should we expect this news to reach us? I'm going to be the second subscriber on your new channel.
Well, I'm going to try to be more open, because I'm very, as you probably know, it's not that I'm trying to be secretive. I'm just concerned of what people do with the information, because I have released some information on my channel before, and it ends up being taken advantage of and going the wrong way. And it's like, I need to stop sharing all these secrets that I uncover, which is sad, because I want people to know. I want the good people to know. And the problem is that they end up not knowing. Maybe what I should do, here's an idea, because I've had people offer this, quite a few people. They're like, open up your own, not YouTube channel, but your own website. And if I ask people to be paid subscribers, like maybe just something simple, like $99 a year or $5 a month or whatever it is, just something small to pay for the actual website, maybe then I'll release some of the information, because I don't think that a lot of the people who wish to do negative things, they probably won't want to pay the $99 or the $5. Only the people who really should be in the know will probably do that. So maybe that's something that I'll have to consider. It's just that it makes more work for me, which I don't want to make work for myself as far as creating websites and doing this, or people even think that I own all these businesses, which I don't, because that would take a lot of my effort and a lot of energy, when all my effort is actually going into me becoming the best that I can become, which clearly is also leading down a very spiritual path. So I put all that effort into me. I don't have time to do this other stuff. You know what I mean? So, but the time frame, as far as giving you a time frame, well, for sure it's going to be most likely. Well, I say for sure, I'll say over 90% probability it'll be in less than a year. But there's a very strong probability that in just 3 months or less, I will already be going in that direction. I mean, I can already say that, I'm going to Japan. I will say that. This thing that I've apparently discovered, I don't believe so far, it's got to be somewhere else on Earth, but I discovered something that all I'll say is that it appears to be near Japan, is all I'll say right now. And I'll make the journey there to verify, and because it already seems to be true, but I got to verify. I'm kind of I don't believe everything that I hear or read or I'm told, but I'm going to go ahead and verify. And if it's true, like I said, there's a very, very, very small number of people who even know anything about it. And even if somebody came across it, they probably wouldn't even know what it is. So somebody literally could just be walking by it and they have no idea what they're walking by.
Yeah.
And so it's huge though. This is going to be huge discovery. And so yeah, we'll keep everybody posted. But I think the new channel will probably be somewhere 3 months or less, because I may literally leave in a month and a half. Right now, I'm having to deal. I think the biggest issue is that there's just people who need my help, and that's literally the whole reason that I haven't been able to leave. It has a lot to do with just people who need my help or ask for my help, and I'm very. It's hard for me to say no to people that I care about and people that I love. And so I think I find myself always helping others, probably too much sometimes. But I dare I say I almost can't help myself. I mean, I could help myself. I care too much. I care too much to not do something especially when I have the knowledge. Which has been another thing with the whole hydrogen thing, by the way. I never really cared about like health and learning about the science and the different things about health. But something about hydrogen has really just ignited it within me. I mean, I'm always looking at like the newest data and learning more about the body and what I can do to improve it. Like right now, did you see the vacuum blender that I've been working with?
No, no.
This is pretty cool. I'll just kind of show you here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, if you've never heard of a vacuum blending system, basically what they've done here is, which I thought, me being the skeptical person that I am, I thought it was just a bunch of nonsense, but you go and look at the research and it's actually real. So basically, when I blend my smoothies now, this is a vacuum system. It's got a Tesla battery in it, actually. And so when you put all the food in your blender and you put this thing on here and it vacuums all the oxygen. Remember, oxygen oxidizes,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So it vacuums all the oxygen out of it. So when it's blending, it's in a vacuum.
Uh-huh.
And what they actually discovered is, because they would blend exact same things with and without the vacuum system, the nutrient levels in the vacuum system are much higher. So it's retaining the nutrients even more. All the antioxidants, phytonutrients, all these amazing things that are within our fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and everything. Because as they blend, they oxidize. They come in contact with oxygen, kind of like when you cut an apple and it begins to oxidize.
Mm-hmm.
In a blender, it's really oxidizing.
Yeah.
But when you put it in a vacuum, it actually, even the color looks different. It doesn't get as dark and as oxidized. Right. It's very light color. And the taste, it tastes so much fresher. So anyway, it's been really cool. I guess if people want to check these out, you can look at the systems. The website's called Void, VOID, and then like a dash or a hyphen, and then system.com. So they're called voidsystem.com. They're actually pretty affordable. And if you want a discount code, it's always uprising144K, if you guys want a discount. But that's something new that I've been doing. And so anytime I discover more stuff to enhance, any health protocols to improve your health, whether just because you want to be healthier or just because maybe you're sick and you're trying to improve your health in that regard or prevent illness. That's my big thing now. I'm all about preventative now. I do not want to get sick anymore. I've been sick the majority of my life, and it's just, I'm done with that. I don't want to be sick anymore. So anyway.
Is this vacuum blender available outside the US?
I think it is. You'd have to contact the company. So you can always send them an email. Like I said, void-system.com. You can send them an email and say, hey, I heard about this. It's always helped the channel when they just mention the name. Even if I don't get any credit, that's fine. I just like them to know, because I talked to the owners of the company. So in this particular company, I spoke with the owner, got to meet him. And I ask a lot of questions, and I learn all the little inside pieces of information that they don't give to most people, so that I can talk, when I talk about it, I'm really well informed and I can share little stuff. And so you guys can email them, just say, look, I heard about this from the Hydrogen Man. I live in the UK or Switzerland or wherever. Do you guys have a way of shipping here or whatnot? And then I'm sure they'll help you out.
Great.
But I think so.
Yeah.
I do think so. I think he told me that he's working with like 2 or 3 countries right now to get the vacuum systems into those countries. Mm-hmm. And so they're pretty cool. I've really been enjoying it. So it's been fun.
Very cool. I'm curious to hear or to find out one way or another about the mysteries you discover.
Well, maybe, I'm not sure yet. I mean, I could maybe share it with you off camera. I'm just really careful because, like, remember that guy's story that we were talking about, the guy who was almost 300 pounds?
Yeah.
He really, really, really wanted to know some of the more spiritual stuff that I don't talk about. And he kind of kept, nicely pushing, like, dude, I really want to know. I really want to know. Like, he's just like so adamant about it. And finally I was like, okay, I'll share a little bit. So I got, because this is just remarkable. I don't even know if I told you yet, Zarina, maybe I'll tell you off camera, but I just made another very big discovery that is mind blowing. In fact, this one I want to share. I'm willing to share this one. I've been holding back for a while. I'm willing to share this one, but I really want it to be on a huge platform. And when I say huge platform, something like a Joe Rogan, something with millions of subscribers, because once the information goes out into the ether, out onto the internet, all it takes is one person talking about it, somebody else, and it spreads like wildfire, but you never really knew the origination of the information.
Right.
And it's very important. That's what I feel in my meditations. It has nothing to do with ego, and it has nothing to do with getting credit or anything. It really has everything to do. It's important to know where this information is coming from. And so I shared some of it with this kid. And, when I shared it with him, what did he immediately do? He immediately started going and talking about it and telling people. And I specifically told him not to. I said, dude, this is very private, but he immediately did it. And then he told me about it, I think the very next day. And I said, hey, man, I'm not mad. I'm not going to freak out, nothing silly like that. And I said, but I specifically told you that you were not to share this information at this time. And I trusted you. And he's like, oh, you know what? I know you're right. I shouldn't have done that. But see, this is what humans do. And so I understand human tendencies. And so that's why I have to be so, dare I say, secretive. But I would love to just unleash. I have so much information in my head. I mean, I got books inside of me, and I would love to share it with the world. It's just, you got to be careful how you share things sometimes. And you definitely don't want the information in the wrong hands. And I definitely do want people to know where the information is coming from. Like one of the best examples is this book. If you guys have ever read The Hidden Messages in Water, right?
I've watched the movie.
Yeah. And so who came up with this? A Japanese guy.
I don't remember his name. He's a Japanese guy.
His name is Masaru Emoto. Now think about this. If Masaru Emoto had discovered that water has basically what they call memory, responding to music, different frequencies, responding to thoughts, responding to even just images, right? Like pictures. If he had made this discovery and told some people, and other people started talking about it, or other people maybe even started taking credit, like, look what I discovered, you'd never know where the information came from. And it's important to note that it came from this Japanese guy. In my opinion, it's important to know who the founder of the information was, and I have even more on this stuff that I think he missed. Huge information that I actually believe I can prove. So it's not like I just come up with ideas that I can't prove. It's just that I need the right platform, because I've tried to disclose some stuff in the past. And, when I disclose it on my channel, it gets stolen, but it ends up out there. I've seen it a million times. It always ends up out there. And then this kid kind of did the same thing, except this kid, he misunderstood the actual truth and the message. And so he actually twisted it just a little bit to where now it's not true. And so then I even had to go back and correct him. I'm like, you do realize that you misunderstood the whole message. And that's also an issue. You want to make sure that the message is very clear and the understanding of all of it's very clear. So it's kind of wild.
So I suggest we end it here then. I am not trying to extort you. I'm just saying I'm curious.
I know. And I wish I could. And I'll consider it off camera if you want. I know that you would be you'd probably be very protective of the information too, I'm sure. So.
And by the way, I just saw another orb. You know how I always see orbs, and people also say they see orbs, and then
all the time.
Saw one orb traveling up your left corner of the room.
You know, people, it's funny because so many people say that in my videos. They're commenting like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the orb?" or "So many orbs." And you know, yeah, I've heard that one a lot. I don't know exactly what it means, but
Well, these are light energies, whether they take whether some people call them spirits, some people call them spirit guides, whatever, but it's just light energies. This is what I call them. They
I
take
do
the
have a very
personification of whoever is thinking about them,
well,
whatever
very
their
interesting.
perception is. Yeah.
I certainly have some very interesting or funny stories about that because maybe we'll talk about it next time. But I have a lot of stories that I've never shared, and maybe someday we'll go into just one of them, and we can do one every once in a while. Because for a guy who's very skeptical like me, I've had a lot of weird things happen that you just can't deny. You know, where there's witnesses and there was people who saw it with you, and there's just no way you could deny it. So maybe one of these days we'll share one of those stories.
Yeah, but guys, for sure, follow Greg at Uprising 144K and watch out for the upcoming of the new channel. Follow him, and maybe you get to hear the new mysteries, the new stories, the old stories, everything that he has to share. A wealth of information, knowledge, inspiration. Thank you, Greg.
And thank you very much. It was great to hang out with you again. And well, I'm sure I'll see some of these viewers who go and subscribe next time when I'm doing my live video smoothies and sharing these other videos. So I hope people, more than anything, I hope people find the information helpful and that they can utilize it to improve their lives and their health.
I'm